So, g'day. Today, I'm really excited because I'm going to be able to introduce you to somebody who has been a dear friend to me over the last many years, ever since I came to the United States. And he is one of the great legends of the incentive travel business. Truly a founder of the industry and an innovator throughout the years in a variety of different ways with incentive travel. Today we're going to be talking about group incentive travel for the main part, and so let me introduce you to Mr. Jim Feldman, who can tell you a little bit about his company and what he has done in the incentive industry. And let me tell you, there's not much that he hasn't done in the incentive industry.
Good day, mate.
Yeah.
So let's bring it down to where everybody understands the difference in travel. There is individual travel. There is a group travel. That's where a group of people all go to the same place at the same time. And then there's a thing called individual travel, which is where they're awarded a trip, but they don't have to take it at the same time. So those are the three general distinctions in travel, and they all wrap around what's called an incentive travel package. So an incentive travel means that you've won it, you've earned it, you've done something that you might not normally have done, you have increased your performance, you have reached certain sales goals or safety goals or membership acquisitions, whatever the business objectives were. And so traditionally it was called group incentive travel. So you would have X number of salespeople, and let's just make simple math. You had 500 salespeople across the country, and you were going to take 50 people as the winners on the trip. So 450 people would not go because they didn't qualify. So you run into how you structure the actual rules of the trip. So you could say it's a hard stop at 50, or you could say everyone that increases by, I'll pick a number, 20% gets to go. And if it turns out to be 48 or 55, they all still get to go on the trip. But the group component is we're all going to the same place at the same time. And the good news is it has the tendency to identify the personality of the managers at the company. So let's say I live in Chicago and the company is California based. I may not have ever met my sales manager or my VP of sales or my product manager, but we get to go on a trip and you start to have this camaraderie and this connectivity that becomes a very serious byproduct of group travel. So you never have that if it's FIT, which is individual, or individual travel, which is sponsored, but again, you get to take it by yourself. So incentives are the reward function. And in this case, the reward is not merchandise. It's not cash, but it's a trip.
So what we mean by that when we say merchandise is that, I could give you an incentive and give you some electronics or something like that, or I could give you some cash. But what a company like an incentive travel house is doing is that they're saying that actually that unique experience that you have by traveling with other people from your company is actually worth far more than its dollar value. That by getting together with these folks, it's more than just the trip, it's the whole experience. And so, if I spent $1,000 on a computer or a TV, a flat screen TV, or I spent $1,000 on a special incentive travel experience, people would remember the travel experience more, even after they forgot that the TV came as a result of their extra work and hard for the company. And so, Jim, your company was an incentive travel house, and we call them incentive travel houses. These are the companies that organize these incentives and the travel and the events around them. Who would you be? Who were your clients?
Well, typically our clients were large companies because what we found as a business model is it took as much time and effort and work to take 10 people on a trip as it did to take 100 people on a trip. So why not try to monetize our efforts and get a greater ROI on our efforts and our ability to deliver? And the fun part is that when you get 100 or 200 or you get a bigger budget, you can always do things that are much more memorable. And so we always described our incentive rewards as something you could not do on your own, which is what made that experience so remarkable.
And so for meeting planners, this is really good news, because if you like the challenge of creating something special and unique, this is a part of the industry where you can really stretch your creative experience. And you know, Jim, tell us about some of the extraordinary events that you've put on in different parts of the world.
Well, as an example, we did a trip where we took everybody to Aruba, and part of the experience was you got to go on a submarine. And what we did is we chartered the submarines, and then we hired scuba divers to meet the submarine in the ocean and hold up signs with the name of the company saying, "Welcome from Creative Memories," or Pampered Chef, or Avon. And of course, everybody came in to take pictures, and then the submarine starts to tip to one side. But they all came back with the wow factor. You know, that wasn't something that you could do. The other thing that we did in Aruba, because we used Aruba as a destination frequently, is we notified them that we were looking for unusual. And one day I was there when the Queen's Marching Band did an event on 4th of July for the city of Aruba. And I immediately went to them and hired them so that when we brought our incentive group into town square, the Queen's Marching Band came out of the alleys and came into the center of town and did a performance for them that was unique and extraordinary.
Outstanding. And this is what incentive travel companies do. They create things that are unique and extraordinary and you can't buy anywhere else. Now, Jim's company has specialty in Aruba and may not be using a destination management company there. But one of the ways to achieve those special events in the incentive industry is that a company like an incentive house might use a specialist company called a DMC, a destination management company, who have unique and special knowledge of a destination. Could you tell me about you know, DMCs that you have worked with and why you work with them?
Well, let's be very clear. I always use a DMC. And I use a DMC because of what you just said. They live, eat, and breathe that area. So they've got relationships that I'm never going to be able to cultivate coming into that town or city or destination once or twice or 3 times a year at most. And so I go to them and say, listen, let's not talk money initially. Tell me the biggest wows you've ever created. Tell me things that you've never done before. So I'll give you an example of one thing that we did in London. We did a wedding / incentive for a woman who wanted to take her entire team that hit certain sales goals and combine it with her wedding. Well, that way she was assured she had people show up for her wedding, and she was able to write off the cost of the wedding because it was a business expense. She then expanded it and said, I want to be able to bring my family and my extended family. So we ended up having everything from a 2-year-old to an 80-year-old show up, which was a big challenge. And so one of the things that we did is we really created 3 or 4 event packages within the umbrella. So on a given day, there was a package for the kids, there was a package for the teenagers, there was a package for the adults, there was a package for these others. And because she saw a way to deduct all the expenses, she came up with a hefty budget. And so our creativity was going nuts. So as an example, because we were taking over a castle, literally took over the castle, threw everybody out, and we owned the castle. Well, because the castle sat on 6,000 acres of land, you had to get motor coaches to move people around. And I was very concerned that with this kind of dynamic grouping, i.e. kids, teenagers, and adults, that the bus was going to be an issue. So I had a bus just for kids, and I had a bus just for adults. And part of the chartering of the bus was the driver in the bus could not leave us for the 5 days we were there. So that if some kid left their teddy bear on the bus, it was not a crisis to go find it. We just walked outside of the bus and found it. And it's there's where you start to get your creative juices flowing, because you start with the what if. And I always say to my staff, plan A is easy. You got to come up with plan B. You know, if you're in Hawaii and it rains, what are you going to do? You know, if you're on a cruise ship and the weather is bad, what are you going to do? So we always focused on a plan A, plan B, and plan C. And the more creative you are to your potential meeting planners and DMCs, the more you can charge. So it's not necessarily a price issue as much as it is a wow issue.
And I just want to pick up on that for two reasons. One, this week we're doing risk management. We're talking about risk management, and quite often risk management, you know, plan B is just scraping by the skin of your teeth. Remedying it without fixing, you know, like without creating. And I want to sort of point that plan B and plan C for someone who's doing an incentive experience, or perhaps everyone in the meetings industry, plan B and plan C should be as creative and as interesting as plan A, because from the client's point of view, that's what they're trying to get. I also want to point out, and again, you know, to the idea that as a meeting planner, you are the conductor of an orchestra. You know, you're at the center of it, and you've got a whole lot of different vendors. And I want to really encourage you to think, you don't have to do everything. If you can use other people's talents, other people's skills, and then, you know, package them together in a unique way, then you can extend your reach and your ability far beyond what you can do if you think, I have to have my hands on everything as a meeting planner.
I always tell my staff, use all the brains that we can find, because everybody's got a specialty. Everybody's got something. You cannot be everything to everybody.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, we get very creative and we're very proud of our creativity. But sometimes if you don't have someone else in your corner, it's the difference between success and failure.
Yeah. And all of those vendors are partners with you in the success of the event. And so this is really an important thing. So looked at the incentive travel industry here. I just want to point out one more thing and then ask Jim about it. But, you know, there are meeting planners, and this is typical. There is the corporate client who will have someone who needs to have knowledge about putting on the incentive. Some of those corporate clients will want to do their own. Many of them use specialists for the same reason we just talked about why Jim would use a specialist. Then there are meeting planners in the incentive house itself. And as you've heard, the meeting planner may be working with someone who's, you know, a specialist in putting together the plans and the strategies around increasing the motivation. And then there's a meeting planner also at the DMC who's organizing locally. So if you anticipate in your life that you want to be located in one location, you want to be the expert in San Diego or Indianapolis or Chicago, and you want to dig deep there, you could have a position there, or you could be moving around with incentive houses or corporates. So there's a range of jobs and experiences that you can have in that place. Jim, just as a wrap up, mate, what do you love about the incentive market?
I love that every day it's different. I love that every day you're forced to rethink. And, I call it 3D thinking, which is, going inside the box. One of my favorite stories occurred when we were taking a large group of Frito-Lay people to Las Vegas. And I made a big point of saying to them, to the people that had hired us, if you want tickets to one of these big shows, we need to buy them now. It can't be a knee-jerk reaction once we get there. No, we don't want them. No, we don't want them. So here we are leaving the airport in a limo, and the vice president looks up and he sees a sign, and at the time it was Bill Cosby. And he says, oh, I've always wanted to see Bill Cosby. Get us tickets to the show. And of course, this is a sold out show. This is, you know, scalper kinds of tickets. And so I went to my contact at the hotel who laughed at me, and she said, the only way you can get tickets is go see the room manager. So I went to the room manager and he said, not a problem. It's $1,000. I thought, well, okay, I need 60 tickets divided by $1,000. That's not so bad. He goes, each. I said, well, that's not going to happen. But here's where I put on the creative hat. I noticed in his office lots of pictures with him and young people. And I said to them, are those your grandkids? He goes, great-grandkids, great-great-grandkids, and great-great-great-grandkids. And they all live in Vegas. And I said, they probably all eat Frito-Lay products, chips, Cheetos, etc. And the guy turned around and he says, we can't keep them in stock. That is their go-to product. And I said, well, my client is Frito-Lay. So I'll make you a deal. I need 60 tickets to tonight's show. And tomorrow morning or the next day, whatever's convenient, I'll have a 40-foot van filled with Frito-Lay products pull up to your house and feed all your kids, all your neighbors, and you will be the Pied Piper. You will be the king to have that happen. And without hesitating, he said, have your guys here at 6:45 in the VIP lounge, in the VIP area. And we walked into an empty room. He let us pick our seats. The vice president turned around, he looked at me, he said, what did this cost and how did you pull it off? And I said, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. I said, one of the things you taught me is that your convenience food and grocery stores have a very short shelf life. And you take them out and replace them. But the truth is the product is really good and you dispose of them. It doesn't have the freshness date. I said, I need a 40-foot van filled with that product to be at this location tomorrow. And he goes, that's it? That's all you need? A 40-foot trailer? As you can imagine, it was a win-win. I not only made the client happy, but as it worked out, Caesars hired me to do some events for them because they were so impressed with the creativity of solving the problem.
Outstanding, outstanding. So we're going to wrap up here, and we're going to do a second video as well with Jim and talk about some of the tips and suggestions that he has for being successful through life, and also how to have that entrepreneurial mindset that you've just heard now. So thanks, Jim, for telling us a little bit about the incentive market. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.
Anytime.